Now, Australian CEOs are most concerned about climate change, according to a global survey conducted by professional services firm KPMG. Earlier, I spoke with KPMG Australia CEO Gary Wingrove. Gary, what was your biggest takeaway from this survey?
Hi, Annalise. Look, the biggest takeaway, I think, was the confidence expressed by Australian CEOs, and that confidence came through really strongly in terms of, I think it was 58% of CEOs saying that they were very confident about the future in an Australian economic and business sense and growth sense, and another 40-odd% saying they were confident. So those two numbers together came to about 96%, and that confidence is obviously really important, but was a key theme that came through.
What do you think is contributing to that growth and confidence?
Look, I think there's a few things. I mean, the survey was undertaken in terms of the interviews that were done early this calendar year, so it was undertaken through January, February and a little bit into March. And I think while there was some uncertainty at the time regarding the federal election outcome, but also some uncertainty in terms of global economic headwinds, I think the Australian economy does continue to grow, and businesses here are confident, I think, to that extent, despite those couple of issues or concerns that were held at that time, and that's continued and I think probably lifted since the federal election outcome has been known.
I did find that interesting that the survey was undertaken over January and February, right before the election period. Do you think that that will change now that there is a new government and more certainty, when some of the things that they were concerned about would be impacted by ongoing negotiations? Things like climate change seem to be a key focus for a lot of these CEOs. There's not a lot of certainty around the policies going forward there, considering the new government.
Yeah, those things remain in place and remain a concern to people. The biggest issue or risk item identified in terms of growth in the future actually came out as climate change and environmental issues, which was somewhat of a surprise to me. Interestingly, though, that issue of climate change, environmental aspects and so on also came out as the major threat to growth with the CEOs we interviewed around the globe. So we interviewed about 1,300 CEOs across the globe. About 55 of those were domestically here in Australia, and the same issue came out as the main concern, which was, as I say, somewhat of a surprise. But when you dig a little bit deeper, I think it does start to make sense as to why that was raised as a major issue.
And it is interesting to see that a lot of the Australian CEOs don't have quite the same confidence globally. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, that was really interesting, actually, and quite similar to the survey we did a year ago, although a bit more pronounced this time round. So they were really confident, as I said earlier, in terms of their outlook for their own business in the Australian market, confident around the Australian economy more broadly, less confident around global outcomes, and less confident around their own industry outside of their own company. Which is particularly interesting. In terms of the global comment, I suspect it relates to some of the headwinds that were starting to be seen earlier this calendar year in Europe and North America. And I suspect some of the noise that has started back then also around the potential trade issues between the US and China, which has obviously become a little bit more pronounced since then. So I suspect those issues would have fed into that viewpoint, as well as some of the geopolitical issues across the globe, Annalise.
Very interesting stuff. Gary Wingrove from KPMG, thank you for your time.
Thanks very much, Annalise.